How many of you grew up in a normal, I mean dysfunctional household? I did. I did, for sure. I'd like to share with you a little bit of my background. Some of you may have heard my story, but I am going to share it again. I'm originally from Indiana, and for most part, my family was pretty normal, except the fact that my mother was diagnosed manic depressive and probably bipolar. We just didn't get the medical confirmation on it. In addition to that, she was also an alcoholic. So growing up was extremely challenging for many aspects. Because one, I'd have a positive reinforcement of love, and then within the same day, I'd have I wouldn't necessarily call it hate, but I would have the screaming and the yelling. I went through a lot of emotional and verbal abuse. So growing up, the reason I like to share this story is because it sets the stage for how self-esteem and self-worth can be damaged if it's not nurtured correctly. And I grew up struggling with self-esteem and self-worth and not really understanding my placement in the world. My father was reinforced. He did the best job he could, and he was by far my stone as a kid to keep things as normal in the household as they could possibly be. My mom, at the age of 15, thank you, decided to stop drinking. And all of a sudden, the house went from being a roller coaster ride to complete stability. She got on medication, she stopped drinking, and the woman that I, obviously loved because she was my mother, but was also massively terrified of, now became normal and became like this most amazing, just to say the phrase, like the wind beneath my wings. I mean, she really became like my belief structure. Have any of you had either a parent or a coach or a teacher that really believed in you before? And you know what that feeling's like when someone believes in you to your core. You could just accelerate. And from about that point on is where I started getting direction and started doing a little bit of this goal setting. But my mom was like, you're very smart, you should be a manager. So at the age of 17, I started working at the dollar store and was assistant manager of the dollar store very quickly. And then again, I'm from Indiana, so just saying that was pretty impressive. In my house, I was going places, okay? In my family, watch out for her. She's going places. So on a serious note, though, it was a great experience for me and helped my career start moving in that direction. I continued into various leadership roles in the retail. I was in retail and cell phone. I sold cell phones. I sold cell phones in 1996. I sold bricks. Do you remember them? The bricks? The bricks? And they were cool. I remember, okay, this is just a little side note, but anybody remember the Nokia that was like this big? I sold that when that was new, like fresh out of the box new. Speaking of that, beepers were like, anybody remember beepers? How many of you remember beepers? All right. I was about 17, 18 years old with a beeper or pager. My mom, I thought, was going to have a canary because she's like, I sold them, so I had to have one. But she's like, only doctors and drug dealers have pagers. Which one? And you're not a doctor. And so, I had to take some convincing there with mom that the pagers were okay. But from there, moved on, worked with Sprint, and about the age of 22, I was working for Sprint. I had now had my first daughter, and I am at work, and I get a phone call from my father. And just pretty typical day, and I answer the phone, and my dad's voice was stone serious. He says, "Rebecca, it's your mother. You need to come home." Like, what are you talking about? My mom and dad lived 10 minutes away from me. I lived in Coral Springs. They lived in Coral Springs. I saw them all the time. So he's like, "It's your mother. I don't think she's going to make it. She's in the hospital." And my whole world crumbled in a second. In a second. I rushed rushed home from the store and got to my parents' house, and everything that my dad was saying was true. My mom stopped breathing. She was 47, mind you. Stopped breathing in her sleep. My dad resuscitated her, but didn't get to it in time, and she was already brain dead. Long and short of it is she got to the hospital with enough time for my brother to come down from Boynton Beach, and within a few hours, she passed away. And it started what I call my Great Depression. I didn't handle the death of my mother so well the first 2 years. That first 2, 3 years, she passed in '02. So it was about '05 before I got out of my funk. But I spent 2 to 3 years in my Great Depression. I spent a lot of time drinking, and the captain and Diet were a very good friend of mine. The captain, he lived there. He lived at my house. We're good friends. But one day, it was a Wednesday evening, I was on my pad. It's a Wednesday night. I now have 2 kids. So update to the story. Hi, welcome. I now have 2 kids. I'm working at Office Depot now in a leadership role. My career is going great. Got 2 kids, and it's a Wednesday night, 11 o'clock, and I'm drinking. I am on my 5th drink, and I don't know, you just have those moments in time where something clicks. I look at my drink, and I'm like, it's Wednesday at 11. This is my 5th. Something's telling me that this is a bad idea. So I got up, I poured my drink out, and next day I picked up a book that had been on my shelf for about 4 or 5 years, started reading that, and it was the start that really changed my life. From there, I started reading self-help, leadership books, really goal setting, hence why we're here today, but really started learning how to accelerate my life to the next level. Not only did I want to enhance my career, but more importantly, I wanted my personal life back. Because we all go, for me, my story is I lost my mom at a very young age, but each of us in here has our story that has caused us pain or has caused us moments to get derailed. The key to staying on track is knowing, it's very simple, it's just knowing where you're going.